You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/cheapgeek. So it begins again. Welcome back to the CreepGeeks Podcast, episode number 180.
Ghost hunters stabbing, superpowers, healing, FWord, and Planet 9.
Yeah. So, here we are again. Welcome back to CreepGeeks Podcast. If you're your very first time tuning in, thank you very much for showing up. And if you're a repeat offender, welcome. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about, but before we get started, what's this podcast all about?
Well, the CreepGeeks Podcast is an offbeat news podcast that takes a lighthearted approach to the paranormal, cryptid, strange, the silly, and trending tech topics circulating the web, broadcasting paranormal news and fun stories from our underground bunker in the mountains of western North Carolina.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Now, what we have for you, since we are givers, is we have a free phone number for you to call. If you'd like to share an experience or a request or something like that, you can call our toll-free number.
That phone number is going to be 575-208-4025.
Yeah, I don't really know if it's toll-free. I just know there's no charge, unless your phone company charges you.
No.
I don't really know how it works. I just know that if you want to give us a call, you certainly can. That's a Roswell area code, by the way, just in case you were wondering. Leave us a message.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the ways you kind of help us out. There's a couple different ways you can get a hold of us. If you'd like to do that, you don't want to make a phone call and leave a voicemail, you can certainly join us on our Facebook page.
CreepGeeks Podcast.
Yep. Or our website.
CreepGeeks.com.
Where you can hit the contact button and actually leave a message if you'd like. A couple different ways you can do that sort of thing. And you can also listen to the podcast. If you'd like, you can do us a favor. You can rate us on anywhere you listen to podcasts. If wherever you're listening right now, you could rate us.
Sure.
We're on iHeartRadio, SoundCloud,
Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts,
Spotify. Spotify's the one that Joe Rogan just got the big sign ever kind of thing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Spotify. Just basically anywhere you can hear podcasts, you can hear us, and we're glad to hear you. And we also have a Patreon site if you'd like to get some sort of insight into what we do.
Oh, yeah.
It's basically patreon.com/CreepGeeks.
Or you can just log into Patreon and search for us, which is probably easier.
Yeah. So we have content that we put out that doesn't necessarily go out to the general public. So you could be like an insider or something like that, but that's not what we're calling it.
Exclusive content.
Exclusive content. Brought to you by CreepGeeks Podcast.
And we still have a discount code that's active in there.
Nice. See? We're givers.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, we have a lot of stuff to talk about, and we'd like to talk about stuff that we find to be interesting on the internet and in the paranormal happenings of the world and the weird news of the world. That's why we're a CreepGeeks Paranormal and Weird News podcast.
Yeah.
News. So anyway, we'll get started. And one of the things that we'd like to do is we like to start off our podcast with some interesting random factoid type stuff. In other words, these little factoids that we find to be interesting and random.
Yeah.
Hence the name. And when we get done following that up, we turn around and we kind of bust out with our new segment that we've added. We find it to be a little bit interesting. You know what that is?
What?
The interesting random FDA recalls.
They're not random. I mean, there's a point to them.
No, well, there's a point to everything, but they're kind of random when I look at them. It's like, wait a minute. Breast implants have been recalled? That's random to me. I don't have them. Yeah. So anyway, some of the stuff we're going to talk about, we hope you find it to be interesting. And if you do, if you'd like to leave us comment or content, like a suggestion or anything like that, you can certainly get a hold of us. We like to become more active in what we do, and we like you guys to become active too. So it's welcomed, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless, it's not welcome, and then we just delete it. Because, I mean, it's just so much stuff going on these days. Everybody's arguing about stuff and fighting about stuff, and that's not what we're all about. We're taking a lighthearted approach to this sort of thing because I think that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
Especially since, 2020 has become the new 2012.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Were we going to talk about that or not?
No, we weren't. Yeah. Because everybody's talking about it, and we've actually talked about this in the past where when 2020 or 2012 was happening, we actually brought that up. And I don't remember exactly where. It may have been on our old show called Turquoise and Beef Jerky Roadshow.
All 6 of you listeners remember that. Yeah.
Or it may have been when we called this podcast the Cheap Geek Podcast because of the way it was set up.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Anyway, we kind of talked about the fact that nothing's going to happen with 2012 because it's really 2008.
Oh, yeah.
Because because the years and the Gregorian calendar and all that sort of thing, it didn't really work out to be.
It was a combination of the Mayan calendar and the lunar calendar being offset or something like that.
No, it was the Gregorian calendar being offset from the Mayan calendar because the Mayan calendar follows more of the lunar calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we were in 2012, according to the calendar, it was really 2008 or 2008. No. Yeah. So now we're in 2020, and 2020 is the new 2012, which is supposed to be the end of the world, or the end of the calendar, or the end of an age. Pick. I mean, these days, just pick, right?
Yeah.
So, and now my own personal opinion is it's not the end of the world. It's just basically the end of the calendar. Because kind of going back to, if you remember your very first PC, and I can go back a long time because I'm a little bit older, the calendar and the operating system ended in like 1996 or something crazy like that. So, if I looked at that calendar, I'd be like, oh man, the end of the world's going to happen, and it didn't.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think this is going to go the way of, Y2K. Everybody was all freaking out about Y2K.
But you got to admit, 2020 is really...
It's been a shit year. There's no other way to put it. It's garbage, man.
Stop cussing.
Hey, you don't tell me what to do on my own podcast.
Our podcast.
Right. So I'll say whatever I want, when I want, and however I want to say it.
Say poo.
I'll say it any way I want. I'll even play music. Listen to this. Helps if I turn it up. Anyway, moving into the podcast because I do lots of things. I'm a multitasker, right? Mm-hmm. So when we look at the coronavirus search trends, because we've been doing this for a while now, and it is relatively interesting because it seems that it does change because the coronavirus changes and people's concerns actually change. There's been some new ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, since basically all the aggravating stuff that's been happening in the news kind of appears to be sort of dying down, it's time to bring back coronavirus.
You saw that meme too?
Yeah. It's like, between the murder hornets and riots and stuff like that and coronavirus, it sort of took a back seat for a while. It's like, it's starting to come back. So it's like, cue the coronavirus, bring it back again,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with 950% increase, it's what states have a spike in coronavirus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because with all this going on and people kind of returning back to some semblance of normal where states and governments and local things are trying to open back up again, and then with all the mass gatherings of people, the question is there going to be a spike? The short answer is, of course there is. There's going to be a spike.
Yeah, I got my hair cut last week.
Nice.
I had to wear a mask the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm sure people are like, what are you doing leaving your house to get a haircut? It's like, come on, get off me, first off.
Actually, it's really, they in no way sponsor this show, but Great Clips has a really good policy, social distancing. You wear a mask, your hairdresser wears a mask, and only 3 people could get a haircut at a time at my location.
Yeah, so in other words, nothing's changed really at Great Clips.
Because they only have 3 hairstylists on staff.
Yeah. I got like 19 chairs and like 5 people half the time. And and look, we're not all about appearances here, as it's obvious that we go to Great Clips and get haircuts and stuff like that. And I'll never, go in there and just plop down in a chair and say, yeah, just go ahead and cut it, because they did that before and I had your haircut. Because they use the computer, right? And they put little notes in there so that next time you go in, you can get a haircut that's like what you want. I sat down, the lady started cutting my hair, and about 5 minutes into it, I'm thinking, this doesn't look like I normally get. And she's like, what do you think so far? I'm like, I don't like it. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, this is not my haircut. This is my wife's haircut.
Yeah. And then she goes and looks to the stylist doing my hair, and I'm getting half the side of my head shaved.
Yeah. And she was about to, and that's when I stopped her. When, it's like, she starts I'm like, look, man, it's all right, though. You know what? I don't care because it still grows back.
But
I'm a little bit older, and it's still growing back. Now, if it didn't grow back or took a really excessively long time to grow back, I might be like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
What you doing here?
But with people getting their hair cut, some restaurants opening up again, of course there's going to be a spike in coronavirus. What they're not expecting, or what they're really not talking about, is, yes, we now have the ability to test more people with a quicker turnaround time and a faster testing cycle, I guess.
Yeah, it's like no longer waiting 5 to 7 days or whatever it winds up being.
Allegedly, in most states, you only have to wait as little as 72 hours.
Yeah.
So, of course, you're going to see these huge overnight spikes in some areas where testing wasn't available. Western North Carolina is a good example of it. 2 months ago, we barely had enough tests in the state of North Carolina to test a whole county. And now we have tests in almost every single county available, So I think our North Carolina had like a giant spike. It doubled our total
I don't know. I don't even
rate.
care anymore. Yeah. It's like, you know what? I stay home. I try to stay away. Evidently, the spike wasn't as big as Arizona. Had another,
and Florida. Spike. Florida was like, whoa, But it's going to happen, folks. Unfortunately, most of the country didn't want to wait for that plateau.
Yeah. So, I don't even care anymore.
Yeah.
Until coronavirus comes back in full swing, I don't care.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, because that's just the way it is.
So what else?
So basically that was it. That's all I really cared to say.
Well, I did want to bring up...
we want to bring up like Garth Brooks is back on concert tour, because I don't understand how the coronavirus daily search insights that we have includes Garth Brooks.
Because
he has coronavirus?
No, because coronavirus, as we have experienced, has canceled most conventions, events, conferences, and big gatherings. Almost all of our paranormal and UFO events for the summer have been canceled except for 2.
Canceled.
And we're still waiting to hear back about one of them, so that really stinks. By the way, if you can't see us in conference, we have an online shop where we have our fantastic coffee.
Yeah, and we're not just saying that to sell it.
Yeah.
Because honestly, we're not, because we don't try to pump that stuff. But it is Father's Day approaching.
Yeah.
So,
however, Garth Brooks, I don't listen to country music, but this is a really good idea, a drive-in concert. We've seen a spike in drive-in movie theaters coming back. Even some that have been closed for 20 or 30 years are reopening because they're doing drive-in movie theaters. It allows you to get out of the house and go do something with your clique or group of people.
Yeah. Just a little bit about that. A lot of drive-in movie theaters that did stay open were almost being forced to close because of the restrictions that Hollywood was placing on being able to actually show the films.
Yeah.
Like you had to have a digital projector and you had to meet all this criteria before they'd even let you rent the film or whatever it is to be able to show it.
Which was stupid because
I think most of that's gone away.
Yeah. Deep down it was because Hollywood wanted that $8 ticket a person or $16 a ticket person.
They wanted that money. Well,
they wanted that per person
price. That's what Hollywood does.
But now, with the economy being so affected, drive-in movie theaters, and with this drive-in concert tour for Garth Brooks, this is an ingenious idea. I mean, it's pretty clever. I hope more entertainers and stuff do stuff like this.
And see, here's where I disagree.
What?
I'm not going somewhere and paying a bunch of money to sit in my car to watch a concert or whatever.
Okay.
I mean, how's it going to be? You know what I mean? I'm just not. It's like, okay, I don't know. And see, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, hey, let's go see a show. We can spend, $200 to see the show, or we can do something else.
Yeah.
Like put that money, away somewhere and do something, something cool, like pay bills because of coronavirus. You know what I mean?
But
and I get it. I'm just getting grumpy with the whole thing. It's like, there's people that's going to do it. Hey, let's go see Garth Brooks and let's just sit there and do a drive-in concert. And I understand that. I'm just not one that's going to be.
Well, I would like to go to a drive-in movie because I've never.
Well, yeah, I mean, a drive-in movie is great, because there's all sorts of things you can do.
I've never been to one, so yeah.
That's because you're like 12 years old.
I am not 12.
Everybody's like, what? Well, we talked about this last podcast where it's like, I remember the drive-in movie theaters being movie theaters, or being not a movie theater, but actually showing movies. And then come the weekend, they would automatically sort of flip the switch and become a flea market.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those were the good old days. Well, I mean, they were, but it's kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
It's like so far things just, have been relatively crap filled.
Yeah. So that's our crap-filled coronavirus update so far.
Yeah. And there's other stupid questions too, like what does the shrinking economy mean at 5,000% increase, right? Why is the stock market going down at a 2,300% increase?
Oh, gosh.
Things like that. So in other words, not much has changed.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, as far as coronavirus is concerned, can't forget that Beijing has had a second wave of coronavirus.
Yeah.
I don't know. So it's a thing. So don't be surprised if the coronavirus comes back, if things start to cool down. Yeah. And then after that, after coronavirus starts to cool down, maybe murder hornets will show back up again.
Or we'll get something else.
Yeah. Because I got some bug spray, got the wasp killer. I'm like, go ahead, murder hornet. I'll show you.
Just in time for hurricane season or tornado
Yay.
season. Yeah.
But we're in the mountains in a bunker, so rain all you want. It'll just flood everything we have. It's great. Looking forward to that. So speaking of looking forward to things, we did the sort of FDA sort of recalls, and we've done that in the past couple of podcasts.
Yeah.
Because I found them to be interesting. Right?
Yeah.
So we're going to go through and talk about some of the newest, latest, and greatest recalls from the FDA.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you are a fan of Captain Rusty's, right?
Yeah.
And this is the problem they're having, and they don't really say exactly what kind of product type there is. So I don't know what Captain Rusty's makes, honestly, but the recall reason in the description area, it says undeclared fish, shellfish, wheat, eggs, soy, and milk. That's a lot of stuff to be undeclared in some kind of product that you make at Rusty's Seafood Market. You know what I mean? The only thing you're missing there is like peanuts. You'd have like everything that kills everybody, right? Okay. So now Real Food has a product description of raw macadamia nuts, which may be contaminated with potential salmonella.
Oh, gosh. Maybe they rubbed them against Captain Rusty's soy product.
I don't think
fish
so.
products.
Let's not get all crazy now. And then, of course, let's go back to Metformin.
Another company.
Yeah. Metformin, the extended release tablets, it seems like everybody that makes this Metformin is having undisclosed amounts of the NDMA, whatever that crap is in there. So that's probably not good. Now, on the other hand, if you like konjac powder jelly cups.
Oh, those are so good.
Yeah, it's a potential choking hazard.
Okay.
So it's on the recall list for that.
I have a problem with that. Every 2 to 3 years, they end up on the recall list because
some kid?
Yeah, because they are a potential choking hazard. It's the same label or recall reason.
Well, I think what it is, it's the same lack of labeling is what's actually causing the recall.
Because they are jelly cups. It's made out of agar and this other...
What is it? What's a jelly cup? How big is this thing?
I've actually brought them home. They're like this big. They got a rounded
there's
bottom.
nobody listening to the podcast any...
They're about the size of a 50-cent piece. I don't know.
what are they?
They have like jelly, and it's really squishy, juicy jelly. It's like a jelly. You hated them.
That's probably why I don't remember them.
Kate likes them.
Gross.
Yeah. I would get them from the Asian grocery stores.
Okay.
And they had a little piece of fruit in the middle.
Garbage.
They're good, but they are hard to chew.
Well, maybe that's probably part of it. But anyway, the powder jelly cups, potential choking hazard. So watch out for that. And if you got diabetes, watch out for the metformin stuff.
Yeah.
And if you like raw macadamia nuts from Now Real Food, watch out because it may have some salmonellas on it.
Now Real Food makes those trail mix candy bars you don't like. The ones that you were like, we might as well just buy.
A real candy bar?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you look at the ingredients of something like a Snickers bar, and it compares like almost like word for word as these trail mix bars, it's like, why spend double the money on a trail mix bar when nutritionally it's the same as a Snickers bar? And a Snickers bar tastes better because it's got chocolate on there. Chocolate.
Oh, yeah, because one time you bought the M&Ms. I'm looking at the labels now, and you were their version of M&Ms. And you were
it was garbage.
Yeah, awful.
Yeah. So. I'm not a fan of garbage food. Speaking of garbage food, we've been trying gluten-free bread. Because I guess I should probably say, going through, looking at some health issues, because I'm like borderline diabetic. I'm like borderline everything. So, the doctors, of course, saying, hey, let's go ahead and take some pills and stuff to keep you borderline and go under. So I don't have like crazy spiking blood pressure and crazy spiking like blood sugar levels or anything like that. Because as I've been reading about myself in your Facebook threads, Omi, co-host of the podcast. So I'm reading all this stuff about me going, oh, I didn't know that. And so I got my friends out there thinking I'm like getting ready to kick over. And that's not the case at all. But we do look at things and like, oh, maybe we should make some dietary changes because it's like if it's enriched and it's white and processed, it seems to be bad for you. Things like bread, flour-based crap, pasta, that sort of thing.
And a lot of it has been linked to inflammation and autoimmune issues.
So we're like, oh, hey, inflammation kills everything, right? Inflammation is the devil. And let's see about maybe making some dietary changes to reduce inflammation and thereby probably control everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
Gluten-free bread's bad.
Not only is it bad, but
it's not even good.
It's $6 wasted money.
It's $6 to eat something that's like, it's almost like if I was to describe bread to an alien from somewhere, right?
From Planet 9.
Whatever. And they had captured me and they had me in a little hamster cage and they were trying to keep me alive for a while because they were nice. And they're like, oh, well, what do you like to eat? And I'd be like, I would like a tomato sandwich with basically bread and tomato and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I like them in the summertime. And I described what bread was. They would go, oh, okay. And they would make it.
In their
replicator. It would be awful. Yeah. It'd be like replicated bread, It would not be good. So, yeah. And if you're a gluten-free person and you're like, how dare you say that about bread? I don't care. I'll fight you in the front yard or backyard. Yard of your choosing. It's garbage.
However, if you're a gluten-free person who also did not like gluten-free bread and you've had to do your research by buying and trying stuff for yourself, if you have useful suggestions, contact at CreepGeeks.com. We'd love to hear them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awful. I'd rather not eat that stuff.
Even the brownie mix we bought was
a little weird.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is delicious. Tastes like brownie with a hint of sand. So,
and not even good sand, like
what? Like
playground sand.
Yeah. Like, oh, this is great. It's coming out of ugh, it's just gross. So yeah, if I'm a little grumpy, it's because I wrecked what would have been a delicious tomato sandwich with gluten-free bread. Yeah. Well, it's true though, man. I was like, right. So if you got any suggestions for a tomato sandwich that you like, you should send them to us. And I don't want to hear any garbage about if we could take fried green tomatoes and put them on bread. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the old school tomato sandwich. You take a tomato, you slice it, you put it on some bread, salt, pepper that thing, and throw a little bit of mayo on there or whatever you want. And there you go. You're done.
Yum.
Yep. And it tastes better with like real tomatoes. Like the ones that look all crazy, the non-organically GMO'd, whatever they are. Like these are like regular old yard tomatoes you grow yourself that get weird looking. Those are just, delicious, man. You know what I mean?
Yard tomatoes.
Yeah, well, if you look at a tomato in the store, like go somewhere like, I don't know, like Walmart, right? And you look at the tomatoes that they have, they all look the same.
Yeah.
But they don't really have any taste.
They're all uniform in color,
There's no like weird
size.
spots on them and all that stuff. It's like, ooh, these are like replicator-made tomatoes. You grow one in your own backyard, and they're big and weird, kind of split. They're darker. They taste better. It's just better.
Remember last year,
actually have taste.
Our neighbor brought us some
It'll burn your
Cherokee
face.
beauties.
Yeah.
And they look so weird, but they tasted so good.
Yeah. It kind of, when you eat a tomato and it kind of like burns your mouth, and you're like, oh, yeah. It actually has like real taste. That's what we're talking about.
This podcast is turning into less about aliens and more into our favorite foods.
Well, it's kind of a seasonal thing. You know what I mean? You can get a tomato any time of the year, but it just seems like being able to go get some from either grow them yourself or go get them from somewhere seems to be better. So
just change the name of the podcast to like
Tomato Sandwich Podcast.
Cryptids and snacks.
Yeah, it'd be a short podcast. It'd be like, what's your favorite tomato sandwich based podcast episode for today? It's like cheese. Yes? No? I don't know.
Cheese and Mothman.
Yeah. No, it'd be a tomato sandwich based podcast. It had nothing paranormal or weird to do, nothing 14 about it.
We should.
Yeah. What kind of podcast or what kind of tomato sandwich do you think Mothman would eat? It's like, well, he's got these little weird mandible lips, right?
Yeah.
If he has lips at all. I don't know what he'd eat.
Lamp.
See, nobody's going to understand that reference. Lamp. Probably nothing. So, as far as we know of anything about Mothman, he just flies over you. So, looks at you.
Yeah.
So, his big bug eyes and mandible lips. Ew. That should be a band name for somebody.
Mandible Lips.
Yeah, Mandible Lips. Hey guys, we're the Mandible Lips, and we're going to sing a song about Mothman. Ready to go. Yeah. So anyway, we're done with the FDA recalls, and we're also done with the coronavirus search trends.
Yeah.
We're going to move into our subjects. These are news stories we found to be interesting. You ready?
Okay. Yeah.
I put this in here because I can relate. These are some kids, Bolivian boys. That's not a band or anything. That's what they are. They're from Bolivia. That's what they call them, Bolivian boys. They let Black Widow spider bite them so they can get some superpowers.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So anyway, hoping to obtain superpowers, Bolivian boys let Black Widow spider bite them.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And I like how they say, in a bizarre story out of Bolivia. It's not bizarre. I can totally relate to that because how did Peter Parker get his powers?
He got bit by
How did Miles, whatever his name, get his powers?
spider.
Yeah, you got to be bit by this spider, radioactive sort of whatever spider, so you can become Spider Guy and have the cool powers of a spider, like Spider-Man.
But it has to be a radioactive one.
Well, it has to be some kind of radio. I think it changed from radioactive to
Gamma ray.
Yeah, not gamma rays. That's no gamma rays. Golly, man. So you're going to make some comic book nerds infuriated.
I know.
And then you know what's going to happen,
you know
right?
what? Contact at CreepGeeks.com.
Yeah. I'm infuriated. Ooh, yeah. Okay, so they actually required hospitalization. There's these 3 kids. They let a Black Widow spider bite them in an attempt to attain some superpowers, right? And this is in a town of Chilanta. They were tasked with grazing goats on their property, right? So they watch after these goats. And the kids stumbled upon a poisonous arachnid, Black Widow, which led to a conversation about Spider-Man.
Okay.
And so they're like, all right, here we go. If we let these spider bite us, then we're going to become superheroes like Spider-Man. So they took turns and they agitated the creature just enough so it struck each one of them. And as you would expect, the youngsters were not transformed into crime-fighting superheroes.
Okay.
But instead found themselves becoming incredibly sick from the spider's poison.
Poor kiddos.
Yeah. Yeah. And this article is like, you can find it all over the place. It's an article written by Tim Banal, and we got this from coast to coast, but I've seen it in like 15 other different places, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, they had some various symptoms, some problems, some suffering there, fever, muscle pains, tremors, right? They were eventually brought to a nearby hospital where they were treated for spider bites and ultimately recovered about a week later. So their harrowing ordeal is revealed by the Bolivian Ministry of Health's epidemiology head. And they had a little press conference, right?
Yeah.
So the head of their epidemiology department was like, he explained that this should serve as a cautionary tale for parents and young children who may believe that what they see in movies is real. And so I'm sure that parents and kids were like, what? What do you mean that movies aren't real?
I'm sitting here like stunned, but also exasperated because it goes back to the whole, it's almost like a societal or cultural debate. Like, how far do parents go to explain irrational or...
Well, I'm going to be the one to say this. Kids are kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Because they don't know enough. They think they know stuff, but they only know what they know. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're a dumb kid and you've watched enough, stuff, you're like, if that's all I got to do to be a superhero is get bit by a spider, I'm down, man.
Yeah.
Because that's all you know.
But, okay.
It's the same sort of thing as when you give a kid like 52 cents and they grab something that costs like $19 at the store and they go up and slap their money down like, I'm buying this,
Yeah, but
because they don't know any better. They just know money buys things. Like in this case, these kids are like spiders turn you into superheroes.
But as okay. So as kids, that money example though, you have family and school and then the real world to teach you that example. With these with children, since they're more exposed to media sometimes than their own parents, they're going to believe everything they see in media. And it's not a question they're going to ask the teachers or other people other than kids their own age. So
Kids are kind of dumb.
Yeah, it kind of goes to, do parents really have to have a talk with them saying, not everything that happens in movies is true?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Sometimes multiple times.
Oh.
They are. No, that's what they do.
I mean, because for some reason, what I thought of was funny enough in 2012 when we were just talking casually about, we had that string of incidents in Virginia where people were doing Dukes of Hazzard type stuff over bridges. And a couple of them, it was people who really did not know any better. They really thought their little Dodge Neon could cross the George Washington Bridge, like jump it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's,
well, I mean, you can jump anything if you're going fast enough.
I know, but just putting that statement
it's
out
kind of
there.
one of those things. Well, I mean, you know, it's probably a reasoned thought where you're like doing your little math in your head and using physics and all that stuff. And just basically there you go.
But the consequences of jumping that bridge, the car doesn't keep going like Dukes of Hazzard. It crashes and gets all messed up. And even if you land upright, you still got damage to your car and yourself, you know? Yeah. So.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of thought that was, I mean, I'm like, you stupid kids. So. But at the same time, it doesn't really say how old these children are. I mean, if they're pretty young. They're
watching the goats, and there's more than one. Usually, I would expect.
Well, there was 3 of them, but at the same time, you know, it's like, I don't know. I wish there was more to the story. I would like it to go into detail and explain who these kids were, like their ages and stuff, so we could try to figure out exactly what happened. You know, was this just a matter of like, oh, hey, if you get bit by a spider, you'll be Spider-Man, or was it something like a bet situation or a dare? You know, it's got to be a better story than like, we wanted to be Spider-Man, so we got bit a couple times and it just made us sick.
Oh, okay. If you click on the original Spanish article, 8, 10, and 12.
All right, so this is obviously a 12-year-old's fault. So.
Yeah.
Yep, no spider guy for you. It turned out badly. Speaking of turn out badly, we actually talked about this in our last podcast. Remember we talked about the treasure hunter just found the Finn's, or actually was looking for the Finn treasure? And we talked about the jail sentence that Stu was supposed to get. Yeah. Because he'd been looking before and caused a problem or whatever. Evidently got a little bit of jail time.
Yeah. And
he's an Indiana man, because we weren't exactly sure of the details of this particular person, but he was an Indiana man who had to be rescued earlier this year while searching for the infamous Finn treasure in Yellowstone National Park.
Which bugs me. It wasn't in Yellowstone.
Well, this is the article I'm reading.
I know.
So I'm not going to say his name. David Christensen sparked headlines back in January when he was looking for all that stuff. Stuff went wrong. He found himself stuck in the bottom of a sizable canyon and required the help of a team of rescue workers to get himself out of the predicament. Huh. Yep. He cut a deal with federal prosecutors because he had 3 federal misdemeanors from the charges there.
Okay.
Yeah. Guess how long he was in jail?
How long?
1 week. And guess how much he had to pay?
Hopefully the whole cost.
$4,000.
That's not the whole cost.
And guess how long he was banned from Yellowstone National Park?
I don't know.
5 years?
That's not enough.
Yeah, it is. It's enough. I mean, he got off pretty easy. He made a deal. The $4,000 is probably just gas, like whatever it costs the helo to fly around, that kind of thing. So,
which makes me mad.
I mean, you know, come on. It's kind of one of those things like, oh, man, you know, the rescuers, they rescued me because I got in trouble or whatever. Oh, by the way, here's your bill for like $82,000 or whatever, you know.
Well, like some of those rescues.
They don't normally charge.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Well, so up in the Whites Mountains, which is in the Northeast, there's a heavy debate about charging for the full cost of these rescues. Because some of these rescues, you know, start at $12,000 and go up to like $80,000 because of the amount and extensivity of the rescues. In the Southwest, it's hit or miss. It depends on if you're found at fault for why you were rescued and things like that. So and the workaround is having something like a hike safe card, which is not available in all areas. But this was intentional, so I do feel he should be responsible for the rescue. Yeah. And having known one of the rescue type people who lives in northern New Mexico, those people do an incredible job. They don't make enough money. So. Well, yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's why they're mostly volunteers.
Yeah.
It kind of goes along with like volunteer firefighters and stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we just want to kind of cover the fact that he, we took it a little bit more detail.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Yeah. One of the things that the judge stresses, it would have been extremely difficult, if not impossible, for Finn, considering age and health, to have hidden the riches where the man thought they were located. Due to his age and health. Yeah. Be that as it may, the judge ultimately mused, but that's really of no concern to me. I mean,
it kind of is, because what the judge is saying, is that if you really looked into what was said in the interpretation, that there would be no way it could be there.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're going to go out and look for treasure, that should have been something that played into your thought process. And since you didn't and you weren't smart about it, there you go.
Now here's how ballsy this guy was. Christensen, who remains emphatic that he has solved the riddle of Forrest Fen treasure, and strangely enough, even wrote Vice President Mike Pence to alert him of his accomplishment. Alas, he lamented, I never got a reply.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, I found some treasure. Let me contact the president. It's like, okay. So this guy was obviously a moron, and the judge made him pay the price for being a moron.
Yeah.
It's kind of what it boils down to.
Yeah, we still haven't heard any updates about the found treasure or a photo.
It's like, I want to see pictures, man.
Picture it didn't happen.
Right.
So
moving back into the podcast, talking about stuff that we find to be interesting, right? Mm-hmm. This is something I know to be true. The F word rhymes with truck, right?
Yes.
Has healing powers.
Ah.
Yeah. And we got this from Mysterious Universe because, the F word used to be in the Navy, and, hey, we can utilize this sort of thing. But basically, the universal swear word evidently has some kind of healing powers. It's a powerful pain reliever.
Okay.
Right. So, when you repeat the word, okay, just to save you kind of what's going on there, right?
Yeah.
It kind of goes like this. You can use that word as anything: noun, adjective, exclamation, question, phrase, verb, right? It can be monosyllabic or multisyllabic.
Yeah.
You can say it for everything. But this one dedicated psychologist and researcher devoted much of his time to adding another purpose to the actual F word's vast repertoire: painkiller. So he did a study where he shows that only the F word has this kind of power.
Yeah.
Right. And it says, in a moment, I would like you to fully immerse your non-preferred hand in this ice water bath. While it's submerged, please repeat the word, the F word, at a normal speech volume and steady pace, once every 3 seconds, while you have your hand in the water. Right. I would like you to do this. I would like you to do two more things. First, tell me when it becomes painful, and don't take your hand out unless you have to. And then secondly, please try to keep your hand in the water for longer, taking it out when the pain becomes unbearable.
Okay.
This is the experiment that he did, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the ice bucket challenge kind of a thing, where they showed basically, the pain of freezing water and the shock and all that sort of thing. So in the experiment, and they kind of go through this, and proving the quest is like swearing reduces the pain, increases pain tolerance. And the F word is the most powerful verbal painkiller. So I guess in the process of doing this experiment, they found that the people that were cussing the whole time could leave their hand in there longer.
Okay.
Right? Which is kind of a good experiment. Because, how could you test that kind of thing? It's like, okay, I'm going to basically hit your hand with a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
And you tell me when you can't take it, and you can use the F word. So as you're yelling the F word, I guess is what they're saying is that, you could basically kind of keep going. So the swearing has a pain lessening effect.
So does it have
like
to
a hypoallergesic effect?
Does it have to be a verbal expression of the F word?
I don't know, because it says, I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it says it works for both men and women, and it's more powerful in people that don't normally swear.
Okay.
So its effect crosses language barriers, and nonverbal hand gestures, like the middle finger, right?
Yeah.
Also work, but not as well.
Huh.
So they assess the effects of the conventional swear word, which is the F word,
mm-hmm.
and two new swear words that are identified both as emotion rousing and distracting, right?
Yeah.
And then they basically went through and they compared them. They used independent variables to kind of go through and they use different words to sort of compare them, and even have one to act as a neutral word. So the dependent variables were emotion rating, humor rating, distraction rating, cold pressure, pain threshold, cold pressure, pain tolerance, pain perception. And what they found is that when they used a made up word, fouch.
Yeah.
Because of its similarity to the F word, which was designed to elicit a similar emotion, right? And then they used another word like twist pipe, which was basically done to generate a humorous response, because humor is known to reduce tension. If it reduces tension, then it should kind of help maybe neutralize some of the pain.
Yeah.
And the results were no surprise. The F word gave around a 32% increase in the pain threshold, and a 33% increase in pain tolerance. Whereas the funny word, fouch, and the neutral word, twizpipe, elicited emotion and humor, and they did affect the pain threshold and the tolerance, but it didn't cause like any changes in heart rate or pain perception. And the neutral word didn't really work so much. So overall, they found that, by actually saying the F word while this was happening, it actually gave them a better tolerance when it came to the pain threshold and the amount of pain. But the fake word didn't make so much.
And
didn't use so much. So.
I have a problem with that because, fouch, depending on how you learned English and how region you grew up, that's a hard word. And so is twizpipe. Twizpipe, yes, it's humorous, but there's other humorous words that I feel you could shout or say with just as much ease as the F word. Because the thing about the F word is...
It wouldn't matter because what they said was it just didn't have the same impact.
Yeah, because that word is... Okay, saying the F word, just like if we go into like syllables and enunciation and pronunciate, stuff like that, saying it is far easier to elicit than it is twizpipe. I mean, you actually have to think when you say that word.
I think you're overthinking.
No.
I think if you say the F word, because it has a meaning behind it and can be used for multiple things and typically has the connotation of being a bad word to say out loud, has more impact and has more effect on you when you say it. That's why somebody who doesn't normally say it, it has more effect. Because the word has meaning to it. It has weight.
And it's easier to say.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's the feeling behind the word that you say. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like if fire truck was a bad word.
Yeah. And
you've been taught all your life fire truck is a bad word, it would probably have the same impact as saying the actual F word. So if you're a person who doesn't use that word ever because they've been taught in such a way that it's a terrible, terrible word, if they did let it fly, I think since it has more impact, more weight behind it, and it means more, then it has more effect on your, whether it's pain or whatever. Because think about a kid. You ever said a cuss word in front of your parents? Mm-hmm. It has a physiological effect on you, right? Can you imagine dropping the F-bomb in front of your parents? If they cared about that kind of thing. If it has that effect on you as a kid, then it has to have something to do with it.
I don't know. I feel the study would have been more effective if the words that they used were also one-syllable words. That's.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I think it would have been more effective if the humor word and the fake cuss word were more one-syllable and easier to just shout, Yeah. So, I don't know, instead of F-O-U-C-H, what if they use the Battlestar Galactica, the F-R-A-C-K?
It was F-A-R-K. First off.
Okay. All right. So
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, the F word is the F word. I mean, it is multi-use and all that stuff, and it does have an effect, and it does have weight behind it, and it does have meaning, and it does elicit a response. I mean, come on. I was in the Navy. That word can mean anything and everything. Mm-hmm. And it was used synonymously, and if you ever blasted your thumb with a hammer, you probably have dropped the F-bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the same time, if you've been completely amazed by some stupidity, you probably also drop the F-bomb. Like going to work. You're like, what? I don't know. I just thought it was a kind of a weird experiment. I thought it was pretty interesting when I read that. I'm like, oh, okay. So and I can see where, all right, let me give you a little story. I worked at a place one time where we dealt with stressful customers.
Yeah.
Right? Every night. Because I worked the night shift. When we left, there was a guy who'd sit in his car at the end of the night. He was calm, cool, and collected all night long. And he was doing tech support. So he'd answer the phone call. Thank you for calling. Let me help you. And the people on the other end of the phone would be, I'm so stupid. And they wouldn't say that. It's just what they were. It's like, oh, and you'd have to deal with these kind of people. They didn't know any better, but at the same time, it was really frustrating in some instances where you just, you went round and round and round. Like, for example, press the menu button. I don't have a menu button. Yes, you do. No, I don't. Mine didn't come with a menu button. All of them that we make come with, no. Move your thumb. Oh, there it is. And you'd have to repeat that over and over and over again to try to get something done. So trying to be the good tech support person that you are, you have to, utilize patience and understanding and stuff.
Empathy.
Yeah. And it also causes can cause a large amount of stress. So this person at the end of the night, when they got in their car with the windows rolled up, would yell the F word, like really loud and long, because they were using that to release the stress. Now, I knew this person for about 2 years before I ever knew that they did this. And the only reason why I knew that they did this is because I was in my car at the end of the night, right, listening to the radio for a second before I took off, just doing your thing, doing a couple minutes of preparation to drive home. And I heard this loud F word just like roar going on for a long time. And it scared me real bad. Because, we're talking like 1 o'clock in the morning, man. You shouldn't be hearing that kind of thing. And it was really loud. And I looked over, and he was in his car. And he looked over at me, and he looked shocked. Because he didn't have his windows up. See, that was the thing. He didn't realize his windows were down. So when he hollered it, I'm not going to say who it is, but when he hollered it, and he did his thing, that would let him relieve all that stress and that pent up anger, anxiety, all that stuff. And he just let it go, and he could drive home, and he wouldn't take it home with him.
Didn't that happen on Office Space too? Or?
No. Okay. They were just beating that printer up. That's what they were doing.
No.
So, people deal with stress in different ways, but he would drop the F-bomb for like 15 seconds and really loud yell. And after that, he was good. And he was kind of embarrassed by the whole thing because I guess nobody knew he did it, because normally with the windows up, you wouldn't be able to hear him. But he was super loud and like right next to me. But like I said, it scared me real bad. And I just thought that was pretty funny. So I can see where the F word would have more of an impact than just yelling something stupid like, Fouch. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool. I'll tell you who it is when we get done.
I know.
I'm not going to say who it is over the podcast. Never know if they listen or not. They probably don't remember, but at the same time, it's not my place to say.
I'm trying to figure out in my head. So
don't do it. Pay attention to the podcast. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, let's talk about this for a second. So we know that the F word provides itself to be a powerful pain reliever, according to Mysterious Universe and Mr. Paul. What's his last name? Seaburn, right? And we've been calling him Paul Seaborn because we suck. Right? Does this planet actually exist? What is it? Where is it at? I don't know. If it does exist, there's probably a way we could find it, because that's what I thought was interesting about this particular article right here. If Planet 9 really exists, here's the wild way we could hunt it. Now, Planet 9 is this mythical planet that's supposed to be out there just kind of like just outside of our reach where we can't really see it, right? Just in the outer reaches of our solar system. And maybe one day we could find it, because people have been looking for it, and it's just on the outskirts. And that may be where we came from, and maybe where other people live, other life on this other kind of planet thing. So it's been sort of one of those things. Maybe wormwood, who knows what it is, right? So what they were thinking is, in this particular article, one of the ways they could probably find it or discover that planet outside of our solar system is by using hundreds of tiny probes. And those probes would be equipped with only clocks and radio transmitters.
That sounds like a bunch of space trash to me.
It is space trash, right?
Yeah.
Space garbage stuff. And says a possible alternative to the probe, a possible alternative is to probe the gravitational field, right, of this object using a small laser-launched spacecraft like the ones envisioned in the breakthrough Starshot project. And it has a bunch of math stuff. It says, with the velocity of order of 0.001 c, I don't know what the c stands for, such spacecraft can reach Planet 9 roughly a decade after launch and can discover it if they can report the timing measurements back to Earth. In other words, if they start sending the signal back to Earth using time and travel and how far it takes and time and space and distance and that sort of thing, they would know about where it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so how could they search for the missing celestial body? Since they don't really have an understanding of what Planet 9 really is, they've kind of gone through and extrapolated based on what they observed around it. It says, okay, slightly changed orbits and other signatures that a massive body with gravity of its own influence would basically influence the outer reaches of our solar system. They could take and use these measurements to determine about where it is.
Yeah.
In other words, we have an anomaly. Like on Star Trek when they were like, there's an anomaly over there.
Yeah.
If they have this ability using these tiny probes to measure this information that came back and said, hey, there's something there, it's a weird anomaly, they could probably figure out what it is.
Okay.
So if they used a cloud of these hundreds of probes, and they would spread out in order to cover more distance of where Planet 9 might be, right? And if Planet 9 is actually something else, like maybe a primordial black hole or something like that, or some kind of like exotic compact object, which I don't know what that would be, they'd have a better chance of actually observing it and seeing it in a way that a conventional sort of search wouldn't be able to do it. Because the way this works is like the way they look at it, Planet 9 kind of pops into our solar system where we are and kind of passes like Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. So if they could measure the readings and they could take all that information and they could send it back to us and basically going through the Kuiper Belt, and we would probably know if there actually is a Planet 9, right?
Yeah.
So if you launch one satellite or one spacecraft, like Voyager 1, which launched in 1977, it took until the end of 2004 to cross the termination shock and get through the Kuiper Belt. That's just one. And if it missed it, it missed it. So if you send out hundreds of these tiny probes, they could be out a lot faster. They could travel a lot faster. And basically, we probably know in less than a decade if there actually is a Planet 9, and if there is, what it is, or if Planet 9 is even a planet at all.
But if we send out an armada of tiny little probes,
right?
What kind of impression is that going to leave intelligent life out there? They're like kind of like Men in Black, where it's like the aliens and they're only like 3 inches tall. Is that what they're going to think of us?
I don't think they would probably worry about it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. It'd be like sending out a fleet of these things. It'd be like, I mean, it wouldn't be very big at all.
Okay.
Right? And they could basically fly faster than anything we've sent out there.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But I'm kind of hung up on, what is it? The Breakthrough Starshot Project.
Yeah.
Which is, oddly enough, a research and engineering project to develop a proof of concept fleet of light sail spacecraft named Starship.
Yeah.
To be capable of making the journey to Alpha Centauri star system in 4.37 light years. It was founded in 2016 by Yuri Milner, Stephen Hawking, and Mark Zuckerberg.
Yep.
Wow. I didn't even realize that. And then I had to look up Yuri Milner because I was like, why is that name so familiar?
Because he's a kabillionaire.
Yeah. Contacte, Facebook, Zynga, Twitter, Flipkart, Spotify, ZocDoc, Groupon, JD.com, Alibaba, Airbnb, WhatsApp, Nubank, and Wish, and many others.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And now he's going to venture into the world of space.
Yeah. So do you know? Okay. So let me give you an idea of why I put this article in this particular podcast this time.
Yeah.
So if you've been listening to the podcast, then you probably know this. But if you haven't been listening to the podcast, your first time tuning in, we've talked about in the past, and this is my opinion. It doesn't necessarily, hold for you in your opinion, Omi. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of what we see, right, as far as UFOs and things like that, are really military craft.
Okay.
And a lot of these lights and stuff that kind of go out there and see like a large, a line of lights and conglomeration of lights and all this crazy stuff is really just using swarm drones and drones using swarm technology.
Okay.
Right. And we talked about one of the podcasts, I believe it was for actually a Patreon podcast, where we talked about like having jets that can fly out there now and they'll have like a loyal wingman, which would be a drone that flies with them.
Yeah.
And helps defend them. And those drones can actually launch little tiny drones, and they could be like a swarm, and they go out there and they act autonomously, but they can also act like bees, right? But swarm and use the swarm mentality or the hive, that sort of thing, and be out there and do the same thing. So if we're doing that with technology now, this would make sense to be able to launch like hundreds of these little tiny probes to have them do the same job and send them out into space as well.
Yeah.
In other words, this would be a commonality amongst current technological advancements that we have, or just current technology maybe that we're not aware of. It would make sense. In other words, it's not so out of the ordinary for this to become a thing and to be used in a way that makes sense. So if we don't know about drones and swarm technology, but it's out there and it's being utilizing it in many different ways, and eventually it all become commonplace, it's no problem, right?
Yeah.
Because we brought up like when these drones fly up in the air and they have like 1,000 drones and they make like little light patterns and things like that for light shows. So instead of launching like fireworks in China or Taiwan or something, they're making like little dogs up in the sky and all, using these drones that are programmed So flash lights at certain times to create images and things like that, using drone technology and swarm and the hive, all of that stuff all together to be able to put on little funny, little entertaining light shows, right? So why not use it for something else?
Yeah.
So if that technology is in place now to a certain degree, what's to say that military hasn't been using that for many, 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 many years already? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this sounds crazy when you first look at it, like launch hundreds and hundreds of probes. I mean, look at it. We have all these little communication satellites that got launched where they launched like 32 at a time, 50 at a time, and all that stuff. And we actually talked about that gentleman in Albuquerque who reported seeing, 32 UFOs, right? And they're like, hey, that's the same time that they were launching. And it's like, no, that's not what it is. So I'm kind of circling it back to, launching hundreds of probes to do the same job. It is not so far-fetched, and it kind of makes sense when you start looking at like some of the other things. Like it's possible that drone technology, swarm technology, the hive sort of thing, all of that sort of happening where you have drones doing the same thing and doing these impossible things in the air that seem to be intelligently controlled. It's just part of our current technology that we just don't maybe necessarily know 100% that it actually exists yet.
Yeah.
I don't know. Kind of makes sense, right? Because, I mean, it does make sense. If they can send up like 1,000 drones, these little EBD pocket drones, and put them up in the air and make like pictures in the sky, and they're all being controlled and they're all doing the same thing, they all have their little jobs to do, why not use that technology? And it probably already exists. Like Able Wingman, Loyal Wing, and it's just, drones are going to be
So all this
future.
Drone testing is building up to a future where we send these swarms or these hives out into space.
Because, I mean, okay, if you are going to explore the far reaches of space, you're not just going to jump into a spacecraft and go whipping out there and hoping for the best.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't have the capability. You're going to send probes. Right? And what are probes really? They're drones, basically. They go out there, they have a task assigned, a task to do, they send the information back. And they act somewhat autonomously using basically either pre-programmed controls or whatever. They're under some kind of control, whether it's a program in the system itself or if it's catching radio telemetry or whatever. And they kind of act like drones. I mean, they sort of act autonomously. Now, some of the ones that we've sent out are not that smart, so that they can't just fly on their own and say, oh, let me use my object avoidance and things like that. I mean, a $600 drone that we have has object avoidance where it says, oh, or something, let me get out of the way.
Yeah.
These things don't. Some of these satellites that's been launched, these probes, they don't have that. It just blasts right into it because it's not what they're made to do. But, I mean, it just goes to, I think, the technology is there. It's being utilized in different ways. It's not really being put out there and said in a way that makes, the correlation between A and B happen. It's just sort of like, it's just there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, go back 15, 20 years. If you had like 1,000 lights in the sky making pictures and stuff like that, you'd be freaked out. Or like, oh my God, what is that? Because you don't know that drones exist, and you don't know that, with LED light technology and they're flying around, and they can be up there for an hour or 2 hours continually doing things, and you just program one drone or whatever. So the hive and the swarm technology and that sort of, I may be using the terms incorrectly, but I'm not really an expert on that sort of thing. It makes sense. So when I read about this, the ability to take hundreds of tiny probes, or the idea of taking hundreds of tiny probes and shooting them out in space with clocks and radio transmitters to be able to sort of correlate where they are, time, distance, and space, and measure anomalies, trying to find the mythical Planet 9, it made sense to me. I'm like, wow, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
If I read that like 5 years ago, I'd be like, that's just crazy talk. But it's not.
No.
So maybe this new technology that's out there and seeing this sort of lights in the sky sort of thing, it's just sort of eases us into not thinking it's a big deal, when really it's sort of crazy if you really think about it. So I don't know. It would make more sense to send 100 things out looking for something than just to send the one, right?
Yeah.
Or just use like a telescope. It keeps pointing at it. It's like you're looking for a needle in a haystack with a telescope. I don't know, kind of nuts.
Yeah.
So there you go. It's all related, man. All the stuff you're seeing in the sky, these weird lights that break off and turn into other lights and all that sort of thing, all drones, bro.
Yeah.
Drones. Government drones. It's fantastical.
Okay.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, it's great. Whatever. I checked out a while ago.
No. I yeah.
Okay, so anyway, what we're going to do, since you're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast, we're going to take a second to play a little bit of a commercial, and we'll be right back. So, yeah, there's that. What do you think about that? Sounds good, right? Sounds good, bro.
Sounds good, bro.
Yeah. We'll play this one instead. How about that? Audible is audio entertainment that entertains, educates, and inspires. For you, the listeners of the CreepGeeks Podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a 30-day free trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/CheapGeek. Again, that's audibletrial.com/CheapGeek for your free audiobook. Enjoy this with your free trial. 30 days of membership free, plus 2 free audiobooks that are yours forever. 1 credit a month after trial, good for any book regardless of price. Exclusive member savings. Get 30% off additional audiobooks. Easy exchanges. Don't love a book? Swap it for free anytime, seriously. Again, that's audibletrial.com/CheapGeek for your free audiobook today. Yeah. So that was quick. You can download some audiobooks if you're taking some road trips, or if you're still kind of hanging out in seclusion because of the coronavirus thing, you got to cut the grass or whatever. Download yourself a nice little audiobook and listen to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's probably an easy way to do it. You can multitask. You could download an audiobook and listen to it while you sleep. Maybe you have some cool, crazy dreams, because we've all done that.
I do not recommend that. I actually used to do that.
And look what happened to you.
Thanks.
Well, it could be worse. You could be stabbed while you're ghost hunting.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Okay, so seeing this article, this has been out for a little while, and we figured we would kind of talk about it. It's kind of an interesting thing. It's sort of weird, right? It kind of makes me wonder if there's more going on. Okay?
Yeah.
So in Arkansas, this man was stabbed after ghost hunting in a Little Rock cemetery. This is in Little Rock, Arkansas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So officers responded to the Roadway Inn in Little Rock early Tuesday morning, where a man reported being kidnapped and stabbed.
Oh.
Yeah. So 2 men and a woman were paranormal hunting at a cemetery, which is basically they're going to maybe do a little paranormal investigation.
Ghost hunting.
Yeah. So at 1:50 in the morning, when they got into a verbal argument, and this is according to the police report, and during the argument, 31-year-old Mark Galloway reportedly insisted on driving, and the 3 drove away from the cemetery. The woman, who was in the passenger seat of the vehicle, told the police that she asked Galloway to stop the vehicle because she could not breathe. Oh. Galloway reportedly refused to stop the car, and the woman tried to take the keys out of the ignition. So the man, the other man, who was in the back seat, told the police he also tried to get control of the vehicle, and Galloway began stabbing the man with a knife. Like stabbing at him. And so officers responded to the hotel, where they found the man with stab wounds in his thigh and torso. And Galloway also had cuts on his chin and his left hand, and both men were taken to the hospital. So Galloway has been charged with first-degree battery and false imprisonment.
Oh, wow.
He's being held without bond.
That makes me go, were drugs involved?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So the questions are, like you were saying, are drugs involved?
Yeah.
Why would he insist on driving and he's getting him out of there? Why can't this lady breathe?
Yeah, that's the other thing. Why can't she breathe, and why won't he stop? Is she having an asthma attack? Is her seatbelt on too tight?
Or did they experience something? She's having a tight chest, shortness of breath, because that does happen sometimes in paranormal investigations where people feel like they can't breathe. Yeah. Just watch Ghost Adventures. You'll see it. Like, I can't breathe. I got to go outside or whatever.
Yeah.
And this guy's just trying to get him out of Dodge. We're like, we got to get out of here.
Oh.
So maybe Galloway thinks he needs to get him out of there because bad things are happening. So he's freaked out and he's trying to get out of there. He's probably driving all super crazy. The chick can't breathe, and the other dude, is like, what the heck's going on? And they want him to stop the car, and he won't.
My thing is,
so they're grabbing at the keys and stuff, and he wants to flee, and that's not necessarily a good thing to start grabbing at the keys.
Yeah.
And so he just starts stabbing at him, trying to get him to quit.
But I wouldn't stab my friends. I would try not to.
Maybe everybody's freaked out. Maybe he's freaked out. Maybe it's just super crazy thing is going on and they're all super freaked out and he just wants to get them out of there and he wants to get out of there safe. And all he sees is them trying to stop that process and he doesn't want to stay in there. We don't know. That's the entire reason why I put this in here is like, what?
But then also was Mark Galloway under some sort of negative influence? And I'm going to the realm
maybe she is. Maybe they all are. Right?
Of like drugs or demonic possession or some sort of spirit influence compelled him to drive erratically and drive out of the situation and to possibly stab his friend.
Yeah.
You know?
Or maybe not everything is being told here and maybe that lady, that woman, and her dude in the back seat or whoever that guy is started swinging him. Like maybe they're trying to beat him down while he's driving.
Ooh.
And he's figuring if he just starts stabbing at him, they'll stop. Because, I mean, it has his picture. He's got a little bit of a black eye going on, and he doesn't look unhealthy. He doesn't look like, he likes the meth. You know what I mean?
Because we have to say that now.
Yeah, because,
we really
you can see. Sometimes you look at a mugshot, and you're like, okay, this person likes the methamphetamines. Right?
Or is from Florida.
Yeah, or something.
Yeah.
But that's all there is on this story. And it's like, okay, well, we like to do paranormal investigations and stuff like that. We like paranormal news. This is news that's of a paranormal nature. And it's like, Arkansas man stabbed after ghost hunting in Little Rock Cemetery.
Ugh.
And so you read that and you're thinking, okay, and then you read the stories like crazy. They were in a paranormal hunting, sort of mode there. They're in a cemetery, got into a verbal argument.
Yeah.
Galloway insisted on driving. Like, why is that a thing? Is it his car? They don't put enough detail in here to answer my questions.
Well, that's kind of like when we did the first articles about the blue-haired devil lady in Virginia. There was like no details.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder, like when
the witch lady.
Yeah. When you do these articles, when the journalists do these articles, why do they not provide more details?
Because when they read an article like this, or when they get handed a story like this, they don't care enough about it to actually go anything more than what's actually required of them, as that's their job.
And
because when you read this, and this is off the ABC 7 on Your Side website from Arkansas, right?
Yeah.
They're doing like 2 sentences and then double spacing, and then 2 more sentences and then double spacing, and then they're not putting any real effort at all into describing anything more than what's been said.
And see,
they're not researching it. They don't care.
And that's part of it. Like, okay.
There's not even been anybody attributed to the article who actually wrote the article.
There's this argument that's going on in the paranormal and UFO communities of old school researchers versus new school researchers. Old school researchers had to do the work, do the time, do all the footwork, blah, blah, blah. And new school researchers, at the touch of their fingers, the information's available. I would argue against that. These news articles that we have available to us these days are just as hard. If we wanted to really research this, we would have to do the footwork as well, because there's very little information that as a investigator is worthwhile. We just have some very basic facts. So the footwork is still there. And then it's doubled with the fact that this particular article, there's probably 5 different versions of it on the internet. But there's still going to be missing details, missing facts. So the research and the investigation in the paranormal community and UFO community, it's still there. You still have to do the legwork.
Yeah, but this is a news article.
I know.
Off a news website. They don't care. The person who wrote this obviously did not care.
And that bugs me, but yeah.
They were handed this and said, hey, we need to add this to the website, or we need this to be a quick article. They didn't care. This is like less than 500 words in this whole thing.
I noticed that.
It's like, here we go. Let me go ahead and write out a blurb. We're done. That's it. There's no real information. There hasn't been any updates or anything like that.
Like literally, there's an advertisement for every 20 words in this article.
Yeah.
So,
and I kind of want to know more about it. I want to know the details. Like, I want, what will happen.
Yeah.
And what if something like that did happen? What if it was sort of a weird paranormal thing where they were trying to get out of there and it is just way more involved than what's being said? And this Galloway guy, maybe why wouldn't they not? I mean, I don't know. Why would they not ask this guy a bunch of questions? Like send somebody down there or whatever.
Yeah. And
really what it boils down to is whoever wrote this doesn't care about the paranormal or anything like that. They just seen it as being like another whatever. dumb sort of Florida man / methamphetamine thing and didn't care.
Yeah. Well, it's Little Rock, so.
Well, that's not saying a whole lot. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But it's a weird thing because I haven't really heard too much of, that sort of thing happening in paranormal investigations, because normally when you go on these paranormal investigations, the people you're with, you like them, that kind of thing. You're going to spend some time. You're doing all this stuff. You have a like-minded sort of mindset and task, that you're doing together to try to achieve whatever goal it is, whether it's just information gathering, research, or experiencing.
Yeah.
You don't normally hear about stabbings and stuff like that. It's just like a crazy thing.
You know what else isn't in this article? So what happens when we do paranormal investigations at the end? We get smudged.
Well, yeah, that would be. They don't even say anything at all.
Yeah.
So what would make you think they put that in there?
Yeah.
So when I look at this to try to figure out, like, okay, has there been any other instances like this? I mean, I'm sure there has been. It's got to be, some kind of crazy stuff, right?
Yeah.
The only thing I found was this article. It's like over 5 years old, where it says, "Why did a ghost hunter stab himself inside the famous axe murder house?" I'm like, what?
And that's 5 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like an Iowa tourist attraction got extra weird, right, when a recreational paranormal investigation turned unexpectedly and somewhat mysteriously violent. So November 7th, about 5 years ago, a visitor to the world-renowned Basilica Axe Murder House in Basilica, Iowa, was rushed to a nearby hospital after being found with a self-inflicted stab wound to his chest.
Yeah.
And the house is supposed to be a familiar sight to paranormal investigators who proclaimed it to be one of the most haunted places in America, following the 1912 murders of 6 children and 2 adults whose skulls were crushed while they slept in their beds.
Oh, God.
The crime was never solved, and visitors of the house regularly report emotional, physical, and supernatural disturbances during their overnight visits. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like they play with children, they hear voices, they get pictures of anomalies. And this lady, Martha Lynn, who bought the house in 1994, they restored it to the condition it was in 1912. They stripped all the electricity and plumbing down to turn it back into a tourist attraction.
Ooh.
And it's like, I have notebooks from just the last 2 years full of what overnight experiences people have had. Very few go away without experiencing something. So these experiences, which cost guests $428 a night.
What the heck?
Yeah. And I like how the article says, apparently people will pay good money to sleep in the presence of potentially malevolent spirits. So it's become one of the most regularly visited places for like ghost hunters and stuff like that. And they talk about ghost hunters who will often bring Ouija boards, EVP recorders, right?
Yeah.
and basically, so anyway, so it's a place where you can go spend that money and you can go in there and hopefully experience something. This guy, Robert Stephen Larson,
yeah,
who is of Wisconsin, was a visitor. He arrived with a group of friends for a recreational paranormal investigation. And according to Montgomery County Sheriff Joe Sampson, he says, from my understanding, he was alone in the northwest bedroom and the rest of the party was outside, and he called for help on their mobile 2-way radios. And his companions found him stabbed in the chest, an apparently self-inflicted wound. They called 911 and he was brought to a nearby hospital. And it happened at 12:45 a.m.
Which is approximately the time the 1912 murders of Josiah and Sarah Moore, along with their 4 children and 2 visiting girls, took place.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you're reading this and it talks about, what happened and how they were killed and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it says, basically, at the time when this happened, local officials quickly lost control of the crime scene. 100 people were able to gawk at the mutilated bodies of the kids and all that sort of stuff. So it was a bad thing.
Yeah.
And they go all into the history of this sort of thing. And then it doesn't really say a whole lot about why this dude, stabbed himself.
Yeah.
So what happened there, right? And the lady who owns the place, Lynn, says this particular incident has been very upsetting. It's publicity, but not exactly the kind of publicity you desire to have. And that's a BS.
Yeah.
Right? If you have a crazy haunted place that's so haunted, people want to stab themselves, and you're probably going to be able to get even more money. I don't want people thinking that when they come to the Basilica Axe Murder House, that something's going to happen that's going to make them do something like that. I want them to have a good experience from the house, learn about the history, and if something paranormal comes about, then basically that's a one-up for them.
Yeah.
So Larson said that has recovered from his injuries, but will not comment any further out of respect for the family. And it says there's a whole body of folklore surrounding those murders. So it's kind of like, why won't he comment? You know, did the ghost make him do it? Is this guy crazy? Was he doing methamphetamines? What's going on here?
I'm trying to find out. See if there's anything more recent.
Nope.
Yeah.
There is not. Because I have looked. And it's kind of one of those things. So, you know, he calls for help. He's evidently stabbed himself. And that's it. So this article has a lot of information, a very small amount about what an article is supposed to actually be about, and more about the history of what's involved. And
a whole section about the documentary that was filmed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, well, that's kind of cool and all, but I still want to know more. Did he have any control over what happened to him? Was he taken over? Was he possessed, like in Ghost Adventures, that kind of thing? What happened there? See? Isn't that weird? It's kind of a weird thing. Not as weird as the guy, and they're fleeing this cemetery with no details at all. Like, were they, rolling out? Was he driving real fast? Did it scare him? And that's why they were trying to take the keys out of the car? Was he having some kind of episode? Were they fighting? What's the deal here, man? It's like there's deliberately no information here. Just maybe this story that these three people that are in that car from the first story we talked about, right? The one that happened in Little Rock. Is there more going on that they don't want to share because they're afraid that it might be seen differently? Like maybe, because can you imagine if you were like, Omi was possessed and having trouble breathing in the front seat. Dude was scared out of his mind going 100 miles an hour out of the cemetery because we'd seen ghosts or whatever. And I'm trying to get, you see what I'm saying? Like, what would cause these people to actually do this? Like, there's no mention of like, are these guys friends?
Yeah.
Did they know each other? Were they childhood friends? There's nothing there. And they don't even say where it is, Wow.
Okay. So I did try to look up that researcher from the Villasca Axe Murder House.
Yeah.
The most that I can find is the story just gets stranger. Man who stabbed himself treated for brain damage.
See, what does that mean?
So sometime around this incident, a fundraiser appeared. And it was basically, this dude was out of work. So he started paranormal investigating. He had some health issues that they were trying to figure out what was going on. And wow, okay. At one point, they figured out he had a medical condition. A fundraiser was launched, and then he was stabbed. Or he stabbed himself. So what they noticed was the brain condition was a front lobe damage in which he started to stutter and twitch sometimes. And as a volunteer fireman.
Okay.
Yeah. He fell while on a call, prompting a visit to the doctor. That test revealed Larson's brain had front lobe damage, which was possibly caused by several mini strokes relating to his medical condition.
So was he trying to get money?
See, that's
Did he have no control? See,
the way this article poses it, it's like, does he have no money, or is this man having a string of
crazy stuff happening to him?
Like the whole ill wind theory that we have.
Yeah.
Because the way this reads, it's not, well, the strokes or the medical condition did it. To me, without, thinking that this man is a bad person, I'm starting to think the ill wind theory, which is, for you guys that haven't been listening for a long time, people go through phases where an ill wind passes through their life and a series of negative events happen all at once, like in a cluster.
Yeah. And you're probably experiencing that right now with what's called 2020.
Basically, 2020 is the equivalent of my ill wind theory. And
sometimes, it takes like a large event to break the... Yeah.
And it typically takes a large event, sometimes not always good, for the ill wind to stop blowing through your life.
Yeah.
And what I'm reading from this article, which is from, November, he just had an ill wind going through his whole life.
Yeah.
Oh, this article was done like the day after this Vice article.
Yeah, but there's nothing else after that.
Yeah. So, again, it's like ill wind.
Yeah. All right, so we're getting ready to wrap the podcast up. We got a couple things to talk about, and we're going to go ahead and end it. We've been talking for a little while. We talked about a couple different things this particular episode, right?
Yeah.
How not to get superpowers. Ghost hunters are stabbing themselves, right? Healing power of the FWord and Planet 9, and a way to maybe find some planets. So, okay, so as you said earlier, things have been canceled.
Yeah.
Like events and things that, you could go out and experience some paranormal stuff and maybe go to a couple of conferences or conventions or whatever. All that stuff's been canceled. A big one has been canceled.
Yes. And this one is it's hit the
and big as in popular.
Yeah.
It's a popular one.
This hit the paranormal community approximately 4 or 5 days ago, and we're serious when we say it has a very big impact. And that is on June 11th, Mothman Festival announced that due to many unknown factors and the guidelines for fairs and festivals now set forth by the state of West Virginia because of COVID-19, they are postponing the Mothman Festival 2020.
Yep.
They wanted to give everybody a chance to change their plans and accommodate things. Point Pleasant, West Virginia still welcomes you at any time. So...
But you're not going to be able to go buy some cool swag unless you go to the original or one and only Paranormal Mothman. What's it called?
Like they have a lot.
It's like the world's only Mothman museum. I can't remember what they're called, but yeah, if you go down to Point Pleasant, they have a Mothman museum. It's pretty nice. You can go in there and check out some cool things. But if you want to attend like a festival type atmosphere where everybody's celebrating Mothman, which has been a big deal for the past couple of years.
They had notable speakers. They had presentations. It's a big thing.
Yeah, Small Town Monsters was there talking about stuff because, they've done a couple monster.
Planet Weird was there.
Yep.
Yeah, And so it's like a big thing. I mean, it's so big that as vendors and exhibitors, we were going to be on a waiting list just trying to get our foot in the door.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that big it's one of the biggest events up there with Contact in the Desert, know?
Well, no, it's not.
Yeah.
You have misspoken. It's not anywhere close to being as physically large as Contact in the Desert.
I'm saying in notoriety.
Nope, not even as in notoriety.
I think so.
No, it's not. Let me explain why.
Okay.
You can walk down the street and go enjoy the festival and not pay anything at all. Contact in the Desert, you're looking at $500 tickets.
That's true.
So don't for a second make it out to be this big because it's a cool event to go to. It's became popular, right?
Yeah.
And it's not as physically large because Contact in the Desert is one of those things where they have ticket prices to keep the looky-loos out.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but it is a popular festival in this particular area, and it is a popular subject. Mothman is popular. It's a movie made. Yeah, and so it's big. But Contact in the Desert is one of the things where we looked up like going and maybe having like a table.
Okay.
And how much was that?
We couldn't afford it.
It was like thousands of dollars. We were like, let's just hey, we've done 23 of these events. Let's just check this out. And I was like, what?
It's big in recognition of name. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, I know, but I'm trying to be specific because somebody somewhere is going to be like, that's not nearly as I paid $700 to go to Contact in the Desert.
But what I wanted to point out is, this was one of the biggest things on the East Coast-ish, and now it's gone. So it's almost like most people's entire summer plans for the paranormal, UFO, cryptid community are just white blank for the summer. Yeah,
like paranormal investigations in prisons, gone. Haunted house tours, gone. Conferences that have this sort of thing, gone. Paranormal...
Even the smaller conferences that were still awesome are canceled.
Yeah. But a lot of them have been moved towards the end of the year, thankfully. So hopefully we'll be able to go a couple of those. Like Cryptid Con is a big one.
Yeah.
Because it's also notoriety and all that sort of thing.
Like we were looking forward to like Wild and Weird West Virginia. That's another one that we really wanted to do,
Yeah. So, it's COVID-19 is, and
2020 sucks.
So far, yeah. So,
but
hopefully it'll get better.
If you were thinking about making your way out here, out West Virginia way this late summer, better find something else to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you should. There is still a couple Bigfoot, it's like type conferences and stuff that you can go to.
Yeah.
So far, still.
That we know.
Like in Gatlinburg, there's the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference, which may be still happening, or as of right now, it's still happening.
I was
right.
Talking.
There's also the Marion Bigfoot Festival in Marion, North Carolina. That one's still happening.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard about some of the ones that happen in Tennessee about UFOs and stuff like that big one. I haven't heard anything at all about that.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't heard of any paracons. I haven't heard of any of the cool stuff where you could kind of go in a weekend and spend like $10 and walk in the door and go see some cool stuff. A lot of the Comic-Cons that people go to, canceled.
You know, even the Oddities and Curiosities Expos, which is now a franchise thing.
Canceled.
They actually started to reschedule all theirs for like December.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, we're going to have a busy December.
Hopefully.
November,
but still,
December.
It's kind of one of those things. Now, with that being said, if you still are interested in that sort of thing, keep an eye out. You can drop us a line if you want. Say, hey, what do you know if there's anything canceled in my area? I'm looking for something to do, but it's kind of crazy.
I know, and it kind of.
But I mean, hey, there's going to be still lots of movies and stuff to be able to watch, like Small Town Monsters. Man, the whole On the Trail of UFO series is like free. Yeah. Amazon Prime right now. You can watch that if you're looking for stuff to do. And I know the Small Town Monsters peoples like Seth Breedlove and those guys have been filming stuff.
Oh yeah.
So they've been out there doing their thing. So there's going to be like Mothman Legacy and all sorts of crazy stuff's going to be coming out. So hopefully things will sort of, I was going to say die out, but I don't want to say that. Hopefully things will get better.
Hopefully, as I put it for one of the ladies I do social media for, as COVID-19 diminishes, as it recedes, those are the terms I have to use when I describe some of this stuff. So hopefully as this virus finds its way out of popular culture or whatever, maybe things will get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, Father's Day is coming up, so if you're looking for something weird, maybe if you have a Father's Day thing, sort of plan, that'd be great. You guys exercise social distancing and things like that. If you don't know, and you've got maybe a following in the Bigfoot or whatever, we do have some nice custom coffee we make.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, we have a basically Bigfoot bold.
And
it is our Bigfoot coffee. So you should definitely check it out.
When you purchase a big bag, you get a free sticker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you should look for it. Little cryptids and coffee comes with a nice little sticker and stuff like that. So you could do that. And it actually is good. It's super tasty. We've haven't had any complaints so far. It's something that we put together because we thought it would be good and we thought it would taste good, and it does. So anyway, there you go. But other than that, that's about all we got.
Yep.
So we're going to roll out of here. So, we'll be back again. Yep. If you're interested in more things that we talk about, maybe things that we don't necessarily talk about on this particular podcast, we do have our Patreon page. You can go be a patron over there and hear some of our other podcast information, things that we talk about. And we have content that's not normally put out anywhere else. So, yeah, it's something to check out. Mm-hmm. And there's some free stuff over there, too, if you want to do a little window shopping.
Oh, yeah.
And we have links, because everything we talk about on our podcast, if you go to our website, CreepGeeks.com, and you see one of our podcasts listed there, every link we have is right there for you to click and peruse at your leisure.
Oh, yeah. And, guys, since we are building back up our Instagram, sadly, go give us a like and a follow on Instagram.
Break my neck, all of our social media gets canceled. It's like, what happened there?
So
I don't know. Anyway, there you go.
It's that ill wind theory.
Yeah, really. See you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.